It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Burkina Faso. Part 2, the selection. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin, and this is a continuation of Series 31 on the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is part 2 of our coverage of Burkina Faso's players. The final roster is released, and we're looking at the selections of Burkina Faso. In part 1, we compiled a list of players and their likelihood of reaching the final squad, and that was based mostly on their participation from after the 2023 African Cup, which took place in January 2024, up until the October 2025 games, so the end of World Cup qualifying there. We considered a few other factors in placing the players as well, and we also gave some biographical and career information on the main players to help you to get to know them better. In part 2 here, our focus is on the selections, especially the final selections. Before we move on, though, we want to let you know that in the springtime of 2026, probably April, we will start producing episodes for the 2026 World Cup, which takes place, of course, in the summer of 2026. Keep an eye out for that then, or better yet, subscribe to the channel and it'll notify you when the episodes come out. All right, this mediacast, part 2, is divided into 3 sections. Just like in part 1, section 1 is dedicated to some team information. Section 2 is the main part of the mediacast. We're going to review the list that we compiled in part 1, and we'll let you know who made the preliminary and final squad. We'll also try to predict the starters. We took steps towards that in part 1 by providing a narrative of each position over the period. We'll summarize that by letting you know who we think were the starters, or who we think the starters would be after part 1. We didn't actually talk about that in part 1, but we did make notes on it. So here we're going to examine the lineups in the games played after October 2025 to see if they give any further clues as to who will start, and we'll perhaps revise our predictions on the starters. But that is our aim here, to predict the starters. In section 3, that's mostly summaries, but some important summaries. We're going to start with our spotlight review, a quick run through of the main players who made and didn't make the squad, and we'll add our predicted starters there. We'll also review any surprise selections and non-selections, as well as new players on the preliminary squad that made the final squad. And finally, we'll update on injuries. Okay, let's jump right in to section 1. And in part 1, we looked at club affiliations of players, the games that Burkina Faso played over the recent period, and their preferred formations. Here we're focusing on what the team published. So teams were required to submit a preliminary roster of up to 55 players to CAF, the organizers of the tournament, kind of Africa's version of FIFA there. For the 2023 African Cup, CAF published those lists, so that was nice and easy, but this time they didn't. Some teams didn't like that they had published the list for various reasons. They felt it had some negative effects. So this time it was up to the teams as to whether they published or not. I actually used Google's AI to get the 55-man roster, but in the process of doing so, I became a bit doubtful about its sourcing and accuracy. However, that was really just it was really just a problem in view of the finer details. Overall, I think the rosters are fairly accurate. At the risk of a few mistakes, we're going to use that information here. However, the final rosters are very accurate here. All right, teams were allowed to bring 27 players to the tournament. Burkina Faso produced a list of, or a final squad, really of 25 players in the final squad. Oops, hang on, I'm all in. My graphics have gone mad. 25 players, but there are 28 players named on their roster, but 3 of them are reserve players, and that means they didn't actually travel to the tournament with the team, but they are kind of on standby in case someone gets injured, and they will be called in. So 25 players and then 3 reserve players there, that coming from a 55-man preliminary squad. So ultimately 27 players will get cut from that preliminary squad. Before we move on to section 2 and see who those players were, let's take a look at the games played after October 2025 that we'll be looking at the lineups for. Well, the first one was a friendly on November 14th. So most teams did play 2 friendlies in November. That was in, I believe both of these were in Burkina Faso. The first one was a win over Nigeria, and the second one was a win over Benin. We're not really interested in the results there. We're interested in the lineups. And that information was kind of hard for us to get. We eventually did get lineups for those tournaments, but we don't have information, for example, on the substitutes, or I was trying to find where some absent players were, players I expected to see lining up there who didn't. I couldn't figure out whether they were on the bench or not called up or what have you. But anyway, it is possibly helpful, and that'll be part of our process in section 2. Let's move on to section 2 then, the main part of this media cast, the candidates, and we begin with the manager. In part 1, we use this opportunity of the manager to really talk about the team and its successes and failures over the last 4 or 5 years, and the managers over the past 4 or 5 years. We won't be repeating all that here. What we will say is that current manager Brahma Traore came in February of 2024. That was right after the 2023 African Cup there. Sorry, he didn't come in February. The previous manager was let go in February, and he came in exactly a month after. So he came just in time to prepare for 2 friendlies in March of 2024, which was actually the beginning of our analysis for participation over this period. So in short, he's the manager all the way through the period. So we will call Brahma Traore a successful selection for this candidate because he's still in charge and he'll be leading them through the tournament. Let's go on to goalkeepers. And we had a definite candidate in Kylian Nikiema, who was selected for the final squad. And our likely candidate, Irv Coffey, or Irv Kouakou Coffey, I'm going to call him Irv Coffey, was a likely candidate, and he was selected. The first of our 3 possible candidates, Farid Ouedraogo, was also selected, but the other 2 were not. Laji Brahima Sanu made the preliminary squad, but not the final cut, and Clovis Bazimo not even making the preliminary squad there. We also had 3 candidates seemingly off the squad. Actually, 2 of them did make the preliminary squad there. The first one, Hillel Konate, was the one who didn't. But the other 2, Sebastian Kula, was selected for the preliminary squad. And so was Philippe Mare making the preliminary squad there. We have no new candidates to add here, so we can go right to the predictions that we had at the end of part 1. Sometimes when we talk about these predictions, we'll review the end of the narrative from part 1, but sometimes it's not necessary. In this case, we can say Irv Coffey had a tenuous grasp on the starting position over the period. He started only half of the games, actually, but that did include 3 of the last 4. So we ended up with nominating Irv Coffey as a likely starter, or as the likely starter, and Killian Nikiema as a possible starter there. When we look at the friendlies there in November, we see that each of them started 1 game. So Coffey and Nikiema each starting one of the November friendlies. So it doesn't really shed much light there, other than encouraging us to stick with the prediction we had. So we're going to view Irv Coffey as the likely starter, but we do give a chance of Nikiema being the starter. So we're going to represent that with stars next to their names if you're looking at the YouTube feed of this. So we have Irv Coffey, 2 stars means likely, 3 stars means definite, and 1 star, as we have for Nikiema here, means a possible starter. All right, let us move upfield to the defense, and we're going to begin, we're going to do central defenders next. We have 3 candidates at the definite level here. All of them made it. So the first, Edmund Tapsoba, selected for the final squad. Isufu Dio, also selected. And finally, Nasser Jiga, selected for the final squad there. We had a candidate at the likely level, Adamo Nagalo. He too was selected for the cup. No candidates at the possible level here, but our possible but unlikely candidate, Ismailo Ganiu, was selected for the preliminary squad at least. So was our seemingly off the squad, Trova Boni, making the preliminary squad there, but not the final cut. We do have some new candidates here. Actually, we have a lot of new candidates here, but none of them made the final cut, just the preliminary squad. So the first one, Sumaila Ouattara. He is a member of the 2021 African Cup squad. He made the preliminary squad. The next one, Hanabi Sagne, made the cut. He's a new player. Next, Christophe Ouattara, also a new player. He's just 23 years old, making the squad. Dylan Uadrogo, he's been around for a while, actually. He made the preliminary squad. He's never been selected for a tournament, but he's often been, been named to a few preliminary squads, Dylan Uadrogo. Next, we have Abbas Abdul Guiro. Abdul Abbas Guiro. Making the cut here. Making the preliminary squad. And finally, Moumouni Diallo. So that is a lot of players. Moumouni Diallo, the youngest of the lot, just 21 years old. We're not actually sure what position he plays in defense. Not much is known about him, but perhaps a name that will come up in the future, and perhaps too some of the younger ones like Christophe Ouattara and Hanabi Sagne. Maybe there'll be names next time around. Okay, so that leaves us with 4 central defenders. Teams usually bring 5 or 6 there. At the end of part 1, we thought the likely starters would be Edmund Tapsoba and Isufu Dio. And actually, we didn't really think Jiga or Nagalo would be starters. We consider them more backups for the position. In the November friendlies, Tapsoba partnered with Nagalo in the first game, and then Isufu Dio partnered with Nagalo in the second game. So both of our kind of likely starters getting 1 start each, but Nagalo getting 2 starts. So we're going to revise slightly. We still think Tapsoba and Dio would be the likely starters, but we're going to give Nagalo, Adama Nagalo, a possible starter now, and then Nasser Jiga still viewing more as a backup player. So that's 2 stars for Tapsoba, 2 stars for Isufu Dio, and 1 star for Adamo Nagalo. All right, we'll have to wait to see what they do in the cup, but let's move on to left backs here. We had no candidates at the definite level, but we did have Steve Iago at the likely level, and he was selected for the squad. And we had two possible candidates. The first, Abdul Ayinde, was selected for the final squad, but the second one, Muhammad Uadraogo, just making the preliminary squad there. However, our possible but unlikely candidate was selected for the preliminary squad, so that's our first surprise here, really. Arsene Kouassi making the cut there. And we had two seemingly off the squad's players. The first one, Valentin Numa, made the preliminary squad, but the second one, Abdul Guiebri, not making the cut there. Two new candidates to add, and I might just say by new candidates we mean they weren't on our list for part one, and the reason for that would be a player who hasn't appeared in 2024 or 2025. We didn't put on the list, so they'll be new to our list here. Patrick Mallow is not new to the team, though. He's been around for a while, part of the 2021 and 2017 African Cups, and named to the preliminary squad here, but not the final cut. And we also have a newcomer, or not that young though, Frank Amy Tologo, also named to the preliminary squad, earning his first caps for the national team actually, but 29 years old. Okay, that is it for left backs. Quite a few candidates here, and then three selections, which usually there's two. So maybe one of these players, well, we do know one of these players does kind of cover other positions. We'll talk about that soon. What we have here on the left side, though, is just three of them as possible starters. Steve Iago, Abu Ayindi, and Mohamed Ouedraogo. The starting position was in contention over the period, with Ouedraogo near the beginning and Ayinde coming in towards the end. However, Ouedraogo jumped back into the fray by starting the last game there. However, Ouedraogo was not selected for the final squad, so he's kind of out of the running. Possible but unlikely, Arsene Kouassi was selected, and he started both of the November friendlies there. But Steve Iago, who's more versatile, he can play central defence or on the right, did start as the right back in the first game here. So we have to take Mohamed Ouedraogo off the list, but we add Abdul Ayinde, having started both of the friendlies there. And so we end up with three possible starters: Steve Iago. Sorry, I made a mistake. It was Arsene Kouassi starting both of those friendlies. So we're actually going to put him in our minds ahead of Ayinde a little bit. Steve Iago, the first of the possible. So we're going to give them all a possible, but we do kind of favor Iago slightly. And then next on our list would be Arsene Kouassi, the newcomer, and then Abdul Ayinde, giving them all a possibility of starting over here. Okay, let's go over to the right side. And here we have just one candidate who kind of owns the position. It is Issa Kabor. He was selected for the final squad. And they didn't even add any candidates here. So just one candidate over on this side. And we can go straight to our predictions here. We predict Issa Kabor, or at the end of part one, we considered him a definite candidate for this position, Issa Kabor. And we considered the backups to be the left defenders, especially Steve Iago there. And in fact, Steve Iago did start the first November friendly, as we have seen, and Issa Kabor started the second. So we remain the same in our predictions here. That is 3 stars for Issa Kabor as a definite candidate. And yes, we won't give any stars to the backup period, but wouldn't be shocked to see Steve Iago in this position during the tournament. Okay, let's go to midfield. And we go to defensive midfielders. I was confused for a second because I looked at the first candidate. It's Seydou Simpor, and he was coded as a right back, so I worried, am I in the wrong section here? But now I remember Simpor basically is coded as a right back, but during this period moved into defensive midfield. So if that continues, we'll actually change his coding to defensive midfielder. He was a definite candidate over here, and was selected for the final squad. Next was likely candidate Mohamed Zougrana. He's a new candidate to the squad. That's what his name in orange indicates if you're looking at the YouTube version of this. Mohamed Zougrana was an injury doubt, and we'll talk about that in section 3, but the fact that he's selected for the squad should tell you enough there. He was selected, and so was our possible candidate, Ismaila Ouedraogo. All 3 of those selected. We had a candidate at the possible but unlikely level, Dramain Salou, and he just made the preliminary squad. And so too did Sacha Bansa here, and we had him seemingly off the squad, but here he is, named to the preliminary squad. New candidates coded as defensive midfielder. We have a newcomer, Aliou Chitu, but he's not young, he's 29 years old. Got his first cap during this period, but only named to the preliminary squad there. We're going to do central midfielders before we actually make predictions on the position. And for central midfielders, we have no definite candidate, but a likely candidate in Blati Toure, who was selected for the squad. And we have the first of our 3 reserve players. It's possible candidate Abdul Yoda, so kind of named to the squad, but a reserve player, so didn't actually accompany the team, but he will be called in if necessary. Possible but unlikely candidate, Adama Guira, just making the preliminary squad there. And we have a couple of new candidates. The first one, Tertuous Bagre, 23 years old there, getting his first cap during this period. And he just made the preliminary squad, as did the next one, Josephat Eleazar Ouattara, there making the preliminary squad. He's 22 years old. So 2 youngsters there who could feature in the future. Okay, so that really just leaves us with 4 candidates as selected to the squad. Seydou Simpor, Mohamed Zougrana, Ismaila Ouedraogo, and Blati Toure. So one might think, well, then it's pretty straightforward, especially since they often use a 3-man midfield. However, it is not. It is very complex. I'll just start with what we thought at the end of part 1. We had as likely starters Blati Toure and Mohamed Zougrana, and as possible starters Seydou Simpor and Ismaila Ouedraogo. So that seems simple enough. However, 5 different players were used over the November friendlies, both of those games with 3-man midfield. And from our list of predicted starters, only one of them, Ismaila Ouedraogo, appeared. And he was playing as a left midfielder in the first game. Zugrano was out injured for those 2 games, but we're not sure about the other 2 players. As I say, the information we had was a little bit scant here. From our list, our total list of defensive and central midfielders, the only other one used was Abdul Yoda, and we saw that he was only selected as a reserve player. Well, the rest of the players in the November friendlies were attacking midfielders, especially attacking midfielder Stefan Aziz Ki, who appeared in both games in the midfield there. And actually, that's not unusual. We should have actually taken them into account in our original prediction, because all through the period, attacking midfielders were kind of playing in the central midfield. However, that just means that there are so many names on the list that it almost becomes meaningless. So we are going to revise quite a bit here. We were a bit uncertain going into it, but when we add the attacking midfielders, we kind of throw our hands up in the air and say it could be anyone. In fact, over the period, only one player played as many as half of the games. If we look at our 4 central midfielders here and the 2 or 3 attacking midfielders, half of the games was as many as any of them played. Most of them played a third of the game, 6 or 7 games there. So as our final prediction is that 5 or 6 players have an equal chance of starting, and that includes a couple of the attacking midfielders who we're going to meet later. So we're not going to put any stars here. Personally, I would actually say Aziz Ki and is really the only one I kind of expect to see on the field. Otherwise, I'm ready. I'm ready for any of these names to pop up. Okay, we move on upfield to let's see if we have any left or right midfielders. Yes, we did have one player coded as a left midfielder. I may have skipped him in part 1, actually. I may have forgotten to do him. It was Mamadi Bangre. And he was at the seemingly off the squad level. He was, however, selected for the preliminary squad, Mamadi Bangre, so but not the final squad. So that's as much as we have to say about that. No players were coded as right midfielders, excuse me. So we're going to move on up to the attacking midfield, beginning with left attackers here. So we had at the likely level Pierre Landry Cabore, and he was selected for the final squad there, possibly because of his performance in the November friendlies, which we'll review right away here. We had 2 candidates at the possible level. The first one, Hussein Bande, only made the preliminary squad, but the second one, Usaini Buda, was selected for the final squad. No new candidates over here, and let's look at the situation after part 1. Well, we had out of position players as the only players on our list, both at the possible starter level. We're going to meet them when we meet to the right, on the right attacking midfield. Like a lot of their talent is over there coded that way. Syriac Iri and Dango Ouattara, we had both of them as possible starters on this side. In the November games, Usaini Buda, who actually had been in this position in the early part of the period, in early 2024 there, he started the first November friendly, and Dango Ouattara started the second one. Our revised list is going to have Dango Ouattara as a likely starter. Again, he probably would be starting on the right there, but they have a lot of talent over there. We think someone else is more likely to start the right, but we do think Dango Ouattara is someone that they're going to want to have on the field. So we're going to give him 2 stars over here. We're going to actually just move him up here. He's a definite candidate to make the squad, and we'll put him over here and give him 2 stars here. We still think the right attacking midfielder Syriac Iri might be a selection over here. We'll talk about that later. But we will give Usaini Buda 1 star over here. And we're going to move Syriac Iri over here and give him 1 star on the left. Okay, let's go to the right attackers, and this is where the bigger names are. Dango Ouattara, who we just met, is coded as a right attacking midfielder and a definite candidate. He did make the squad there, but we also have Bertrand Traore over here, the captain of the team. And he was a definite candidate too. And we see he too was selected for the squad. Syriac Iri, a possible candidate over here, a newcomer to the team, was selected for the squad. And so was the other possible candidate, Georgie Minungu, selected over here. So a lot of talent over here, as I said. We had a possible but unlikely candidate in Ousmane Camara. He didn't make the preliminary squad, but our seemingly off the squad, Abdul Tapsoba, did make the preliminary squad, but not the final cut. No new candidates over here. And so we go to our discussion of the predicted starters. Well, what we landed on here at the end of part 1 was Bertrand Traore as a likely starter, and then both of the players we met on the left side there, Dango Ouattara and Syriac Iri, as possible starters on the right. And we'll give a little bit of history here to explain. Bertrand Traore was off the squad for most of 2024, but he returned and then was the main starter over here. His reputation and status, captain of the team, and has played with big clubs there, makes us think that they would choose Bertrand Traore when he's available. He kind of steps into the role. It could be this role as right attacking midfielder, though, or it could be as a forward, as we'll see a little bit later. In short, in summary, we think they'll want to have on the field Bertrand Traore and Dango Ouattara. So we see both of those as starters. Probably in the left and right attacking midfield position, with Syriac Iri the backup on either side. That may be oversimplifying it a bit because, as we said, Bertrand Traore may also start as a forward. Also, newcomer Georgie Minungu, who had subbed into all 4 of the fall 2025 matches, started the first November friendly. So maybe he's inserting himself into the picture too. In the second November friendly there, it was Bertrand Traore getting the start. All right, so where do we land on that? Well, we think Bertrand Traore is the likely starter over here. We're later going to give him 1 star starting as a forward. We think he'll definitely be put on the field. And we'll give Dango Ouattara 1 star over here. So his total will be 3 stars, and we do think he would be a definite starter in the cup. Syriac Iri, we will give 1 star over here, but I'm a bit hesitant to consider him a likely starter in the cup. It's just very crowded with talent up here, and it would be maybe difficult to get on the field. But we think it's possible that he will overall a possible candidate here. So maybe I'll take him off the right side here. And just leave him as a possible candidate more on the left side. Georgie Minungu, after starting the friendly, we're still not ready to say that he's a possible starter, but he could take us by surprise there. Okay, that's it for right attackers. Let's go to the central attacking midfield. And here we have 2 definite candidates, Cedric Badolo, who was selected for the squad, and the other one, Josui Tiendra-Biogo, is the second of our reserve players. there. So technically selected for the final squad, but not actually in Morocco with them there. We had no candidates at the likely level, but at the possible level, we have Stéphane Aziz-Ki. And we will talk about them. Again, we saw he and Badolo starting in the central midfield there. Let's go to possible but unlikely candidate, Raouf Memel Dao. And he was not selected even for the preliminary squad. But surprisingly, Gustavo Sangare, who we had as seemingly off the squad, was selected for the final squad. So we're going to give some details on him since we didn't give details on players at this level in part one. So Gustavo Sangare with the team since 2021 and 38 caps and 2 goals. He's 29 years old. So he's been a fairly major player for them. He has been with a team in Armenia called Noah since 2024. Prior to that, he was in France, mostly with Quevilly Rouen in France there. And he was part of the 2021 and 2023 African Cups. He was a starter, started all 7 games actually in 2021. And in 2023, he started on the bench, but then gained a starting position after game 1. So, yes, a fairly significant player. However, he had last appeared in September of 2024, so seemed to be off the squad. But here he is called back into the fray. So they have some good talent at attacking midfielder, even though they don't use the position very much. They did use it in the first 3 games of the last African Cup. And Stéphane Azizi filled it twice and Gustavo Sangare once. But otherwise, over the period after that, just used it 2 times there. However, we have seen these attacking midfielders playing in the central midfield. In fact, most of their starts were there. So we think it's actually more likely that they'll be starters in central midfield than they will in an attacking midfield 4-2-3-1 formation there. So at the end of part 1, we did think Cedric Badolo and Stéphane Aziz-Ki were possible starters, but again, maybe more likely in the midfield than in this attacking midfield position. In the November games, they didn't use this position in either game. However, we did see Aziz-Ki starting both of those games, and Badolo started the second of them. So again, we're going to kind of stick with our prediction there as both of these players being possible starters in the more likely in the central midfield than in this position. Okay, so that is Badolo and Aziz-Ki, and who knows the return of Gustavo Sangare. I mean, we're presuming he'll start on the bench, but you know, he has been a starter in the last 2 tournaments, so he may pop up. Okay, let's go to the forward line. We have no one at the coded as secondary striker, so we can focus directly on the centre forwards. And we had a definite candidate in Mohamed Konate, but a bit of a surprise here in that he was only placed on the reserve squad, Mohamed Konate. So he is the 3rd reserve squad, the 3rd and last reserve squad member. That may be because he had really been in replacing Lassina Frank Traore, who had been struggling with injury and hadn't played for the team at all in the fall of 2025. But he is named to the squad here, suggesting he's back to fitness. And we'll talk about that more when we get to our predictions. But Lassina Frank Traore, the other definite candidate, and we'll talk about his injury in section 3, but he is named to the final squad. After that, we go all the way down to the seemingly off the squad level. So not many candidates here. The first one is Abdul Kader Ouattara. and he was not even named to the preliminary squad. The other one, Jabril Ouattara, did at least make the preliminary squad there. And we have some new candidate, or one new candidate to add here, and that is Abdoulaye Touré, a 31-year-old player making the preliminary squad, getting his first cap for the national team in the recent period. And so there we're really just left with Lassina Frank Traore. Amazing that they're just bringing one forward to the tournament. I mean, that's part of the reason we thought Mohamed Konate would be a definite candidate. However, we do know that attacking midfielders, especially Bertrand Traore, may add cover in this position. Here, let's take a look at the end of part one. We thought that if Lassana Frank Traore was fit, that he would be a likely starter, almost definite there. And we saw as possible starters Bertrand Traore and Mohamed Konate. Of course, Konate now will have to be taken off the list. Frank Traore, or Lassana Frank Traore, was out injured a couple of times over the period, including at the end. And yes, we do think he'll step back into the role if he's fit. In truth, Mohamed Konate and Bertrand Traore shared the role in his absence. And in the November friendlies, Mohamed Konate did start the first one. So it's, again, a bit surprising that he was not selected. However, the second one was started by Pierre Landry Cabor, who we introduced as a left attacking midfielder there, and he scored a hat-trick. He scored a hat-trick in the second game. So Lassina Frank Traore is freshly back from injury, and we wonder if he'll be fit to start. So we're looking at Bertrand Traore, who seems to be the likely backup. But that performance by Pierre Landry Cabor certainly puts him in the picture of being maybe the starting forward if Traore is not fit, or definitely coming in as a substitute there. So we're going to give what do we have? 2 stars, a likely starter in Lassina Frank Traore. A main concern would be his fitness here. We're also going to give Bertrand Traore a star as a possible starter up front here. We'll take the highlight off of him here, and we're also going to give Pierre. Just let me find him there. We're also going to give Pierre Landry Cabor a star as a starter up here. He had only been a possible candidate, actually, but did himself some good in that friendly. So there we go. 1 star for Bertrand Traore, 1 star for Pierre Landry Cabor there, and that brings us to the end of our of section 2 and our look at the players. So we're going to move on to section 3 here, and in section 3 we want to welcome listeners to the short version of the mediacast here. So we're going to begin with our spotlight review, and that's a race through the squad, reviewing what we covered here in part 2, but really in part 1 too. In part 1, we made a list of players and placed them according to their likelihood of reaching the squad. Then in part 2 here, we looked at who actually did make the squad, and we predicted the starters. So that is what we're racing through right here, and we begin with manager. Once I get the graphics to the right place here, manager Brahma Traore, and we'll consider him as having been selected for the final squad. He will lead them through the tournament. For goalkeepers, we had a definite candidate in Kylian Nikiema. He was selected for the squad. So was our likely candidate, Irv Coffey, and the first of our 3 possible candidates, Farid Ouedraogo. However, the second possible candidate, Laji Brahima Sanu, just making the preliminary squad, and Clovis Bazemo not even making the preliminary squad. We're not going to talk about players below that level unless they were selected for the final squad. But what we are going to talk about is our predictions. So we consider Irv Coffey the likely starter and Kylian Nikiema a possible starter there. Moving on to central defence, we had 3 definite candidates. All of them made the final squad. That's Edmund Tapsoba, Isufa Dio, and Nasser Jiga. And then we had a likely candidate, Adamo Nagalo, also making the squad. And that's it. They're bringing just the 4 central defenders to the cup here. In terms of starters, we think Tapsoba, Edmund Tapsoba and Isufu Dio are likely starters there. And we give Adamo Nagalo 1 star to indicate he's a possible starter. Over to the left backs, we have 3 candidates making the squad here. We had no definite candidates. The first one on our list was the likely candidate, Steve Yago, and he was selected for the squad. We had 2 possible candidates, Abdul Ayinde, who was selected, but the other possible candidate, Mohamed Ouedraogo, just making the preliminary squad there. And a bit of a surprise in that our possible but unlikely candidate, Arsene Kouasse, did make the final cut there. In terms of starters, we give 1 star to each of them, actually. Steve Yago, Abdul Ayinde, and Arsene Kouasse, all 3 of them possible starters. Over to the right back position, we only have 1 candidate on our list, and that is Issa Kabor. And we think he is a definite starter over here. But we do recognize that the backup player would probably be a left back, and among the left backs, most likely Steve Yago acting as the backup for this position. On we go to defensive midfielders, and we have a definite candidate in Seydou Simpore. Actually, he's coded as a right back, but played as a defensive midfielder over this period. And he was selected for the preliminary squad, Seydou Simpore. And likely candidate Mohamed Zugrana overcame injury to earn selection for the squad here. And 2, our possible candidate Ismaila Ouedraogo was also selected for the final squad there. So 3 candidates coded as defensive midfielders. Well, kind of, because one of them is coded as a right back. And then coded as central midfielders, we have our likely candidate Blati Toure selected for the final squad, and our possible candidate Abdul Yoda just selected for the reserve squad there. So it's 25 players actually brought to the tournament, 28 players on the roster. These reserve candidates didn't travel with the team to the tournament, but will be brought in if necessary. In terms of starters over here, we really couldn't predict anything. Part of the reason for that is that the attacking midfielders also come back and play here. So we have 5 or 6 candidates basically at the possible level here. We didn't put a star beside them here, but that's our thinking. All 4 of these players possible starters, but we're not convinced by any single one of them that that we expect to see them on the field. Okay, that's it for the central midfield. We're going to move on up to the attacking midfield now, begin with left attackers. And here we have a likely candidate in Pierre Landry Cabore. He was selected for the final squad. And we had 3 possible candidates. The first one, Hussein Bande, not selected for the final squad, just the preliminary squad for him. But our second one, Usaini Buda, did make the final cut. We have a couple of other players on the list over here, but we've just moved them over because they are out of position possible starters. In fact, we think the most likely starter over here is Dango Ouattara. who we're going to meet as a right attacking midfielder shortly. But we think he is at the likely level for starting on this side. We also think possible would be out of position Syriac Erie, who will also meet right away here. The only player actually coded as a left attacking midfielder, Husseini Buda, we give 1 star to indicate that he's a possible starter over here. Okay, the right attacker is where right attacking midfield is where these players are actually coded. So we had 2 definite candidates, Dango Ouattara and Bertrand Traore, both of those making the final cut. And then we had 2 candidates at the possible level, newcomers Syriac Erie and Georgie Minungu, both of them making the final cut as well. So 4 players coded as right attackers. For this position, we think Bertrand Traore is a likely starter, but we also give Dango Ouattara 1 star over here as a possible starter in this position. So now that we've given Ouattara 3 stars, that kind of adds up to him being a definite starter, which does fit our expectation. We didn't give any stars over here, although we do think Syriac Erie is a possible starter. Overall, though, we don't want to give him 2 stars because we think Syriac Erie is just a possible starter overall, and we gave him 1 star on the left, which we think would be more likely if he does get a start. All right, we move on to central attackers, and here we had 2 candidates at the definite level. The first one, Cedric Badolo, was selected for the final squad. The second one, Josue Chiendra Biogo, was the second reserve player, so named to the 28-man squad, but just a reserve player, not traveling to Morocco with them here. We go down to the possible level for our next candidate. That is Stéphane Aziz Ki, and he was selected for the final squad. And here we have a surprise in our seemingly off the squad, Gustavo Zangare, being selected for the squad. Which is a bit ironic that we have, we'll say 3.5 candidates over here because they've rarely used this position of central attacking midfielder over the period. But these players are getting on the field, especially Badolo and Aziz Ki. They're sometimes starting in the central midfield. So we give both of them 1 star as possible starters over here, but we would expect that to be more likely in the central midfield than actually as an attacking midfielder. Okay, finally, we have our forwards, and once again, we have a definite candidate only making the reserve squad. So this is our 3rd reserve player, Mohamed Konate, a definite candidate, but only on the reserve squad there. We also have 1 other candidate, Lassina Frank Traore, who was selected for the final squad, overcoming injury concerns there. And that's all we have over here in terms of candidates. But we do have a couple of other players on the list that we've added because they are possible starters here. So we would give Lassina Traore as a likely starter over here. We're just a bit concerned about his fitness. So if he doesn't start, we think either Bertrand Traore, we give a possibility of starting, and then Pierre Landry Cabor, we wouldn't have put him in this position. We actually hadn't at the end of part 1, but he went and scored a hat-trick in the November, the 2nd November friendly there. So we think they got to be considering him as a possible candidate over here. So we give him 1 star. All right, that is it for our spotlight review. Let's take a look at some of the surprises that we have. Well, I'm going to say that 2 of the 3 reserve players were a bit of a surprise because they were definite candidates for us here and, fundamentally not selected for the final squad. That is attacking midfielder Josue Chiendra Biogo. put too much information there. I just want his name. Tiendra Biogo, and then forward Mohamed Konate, who we also had as a definite starter. And so that is why. The other one was only at the possible level, so we're not really surprised that he was on the reserve squad. But these two, both of them, Tiendra Biogo and Konate, both of them had been definite candidates. Unexpected selections. The first one is Arsene Kouassi. And I was supposed to introduce him in part 2, and I forgot to. So I'll just quickly say he's 21 years old, plays for Lorient in France, and was born in Ivory Coast. Came in June of 2025 and started one of their remaining 6 games, but then hadn't been selected for the last 5 matches. So we thought he was possible but unlikely. But there he is, selected as a left back. Arsene Kouassi, and the other one we did introduce, Gustavo Sangare. We had considered him seemingly off the squad, but here he is making the final cut. So both of those surprise inclusions. Also a bit surprisingly, I would say that none of the new players named to the preliminary squad that hadn't made our list in part 1 were selected or were there were no new players from that list. So usually there's a couple, but none this time. All of the players selected were players we had covered in part 1. All right, that's it for surprises. Let's look at injuries. So here is the injury list we had from part 1. We actually knew that Mohamed Zukrana was recovered from injury, but I'll just tell you the details on that one. He was out with a knee injury since late October, but he had returned to action on December 8th. And we did our media part 1 after that, so we knew that he was back in action. And we'll put him in the recovered from injury in the revised injury list, with the important distinction that he was selected for the final squad, so overcame his injury to earn selections. We're not so sure about Lassana Frank Traore. At the end of part 1, we considered him a close call. He had been out with a hamstring injury since early August, so he missed all of the fall 2025 games. He had recovered from that at the end of part 1, but was still building fitness when we did the media cast. We presumed that he would be back in time, and he was actually on the bench for his club on December 14th, and of course he's selected for the squad. So we'll say that he's recovered from injury. Whether he's recovered to full fitness, though, we remain a bit uncertain there, so we'll have to see. It might be that they don't start him in game 1 and then start him after he's had a bit more time to recover. Okay, that is it. We sometimes have closing thoughts for teams, but sometimes not particularly, so we don't really hear. I would say the only thing I'm wondering about is the lack of forwards in terms of like who are they going to sub in as forwards, because often forwards play like 60 or 70 minutes of the game, so they don't have a lot of backup in the forward line there, but we don't have a lot of closing thoughts on Burkina Faso, so we can move to our closing graphic and then say farewell and hope you join us for our next team. We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this media cast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.